All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I think we're sitting at about 130 people on the call right now. It's still kind of going up and up. We want to give people a few minutes for those who haven't used Zoom before or just having difficulty logging on. Obviously, everyone knows it's really difficult right now. Everything's changing really quickly. You know, we woke up to the stock market, quote unquote, collapsing. Anyways, things are really changing right now really quickly. Our intention right now is to talk about what we can do and what we're possibly facing. We don't want to be telling anyone what to do, but what we're doing and what we can see others doing. The number one thing right now is Ottawa Public Health is clearly saying to stay home. Do not go out for non-essential reasons. I think that's what we're using. And Jody, I don't know, we've got to talk about that, but that's what we're using as our guideline in terms of what's necessary. Jody?
Yeah. I think, we as a group, as an industry, this is the Ottawa side of things, so we can take our own mark away from everywhere else. But, anything that's deemed non-essential, I think we really need to examine not going out and doing those things that aren't essential. And we all need to find out for ourselves in our businesses and in our lives what is essential. But is a buyer meeting essential? Can you do it by the phone? Can you do it by video? We have 130 people logged in right now. We have a lot of tools that we're getting comfortable with using. Open houses, can you do it virtually? Can you do something else? Is it essential? Is it going to meet that threshold where the government says if you have more than 50 people together, they're not going to allow it anymore? We really need to start to examine this stuff. And I think, we need to listen to public health and everyone else that's speaking to us on these things. And so what we've done today is we brought together 3 people that I think can offer us a perspective of what's going on in those sections of the business. We have Frank Napolitano from Mortgage Brokers Ottawa.com, industry leaders in the mortgage sector. David Leaf from Farber Robillard Leith. They've also probably been inside your brokerages in different places and done a lot of good work with real estate agents along the way. And Jason McDonald's also on the call, who is the current president of the Barrhaven BIA. And they've had to make some really tough decisions there as well. A lot of small businesses in Barrhaven, a lot of family-run businesses as well that are going to have to make changes to the way they do business and suffer along with us, adapt along with us. And just want to mention really quick off the top, this is not to replace or displace the advice or recommendations of doctors, health professionals, government, any government body, or your brokerage or team leader. Okay, so this is just information we're putting out there that you're going to decide how this applies to your business and your situation. If you're watching the news this morning, the stock market is going straight down 11% at the opening. The Italian death toll has jumped in the last 24 hours. So, these things are coming our way, and we need to do our best to protect against that. First up, I wanted to bring Frank Napolitano on the call, and we've given him a few questions and a few things to talk about that are important to us in our business. Are we going to still be able to conduct business, and in what way? And so, Frank, are you on?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Frank. Hey, take it away here. Talk to us a little bit about what's going on your end and what we can do.
Thanks. Again, uncharted waters for us as well, obviously, and the lenders. And every minute we're getting emails, updates, what's going on. I'm very interested to hear what the lawyer is going to say, because that'll be critical in itself as well. But from the lender perspective, or at least from the mortgage brokerage perspective, right now, the number one question we get on our phone's been ringing off the hook this morning, and believe it or not, rates, because of what happened, obviously, with the U.S. Fed yesterday and their altering move and expected move by many of us. And Bank of Canada did the 0.5% drop on Friday. We expected 0.75 of a point. So do not be surprised if either Trudeau this afternoon or later on this week makes another rate cut. So what's that mean for clients? It means that you would think it means lower rates, right? Definitely on the prime side. Now, the banks, by the way, have not given that 0.5% prime, or not announced that they've given that 0.5% prime drop back to consumers yet. That happened on Friday. So we haven't seen that yet either, but we expect that to happen. We think it's in good faith that they do that, but who knows with
Frank?
Yeah.
We were on a call yesterday, and you had said maybe one of the banks even raised rates, looking at maybe potential more risk. So they're increasing their spread and their margins in this environment as well.
Yes, they are. You're right. Scotiabank announced on Friday afternoon, and you should have seen the jaws drop when we saw it, that they were increasing their fixed rates by 0.25%. I called the VP, I spoke with him on Friday night, and he said, Frank, our spreads are thinning based on what's going on and the fact that they see a recession in the forecast, and the banks need to make sure that their profit margins stay where they are. So this is a way of them doing it. The other thing he said is watch for another increase potentially next week as well. So, here we are, we're all sitting here thinking rates are going to bottom out. And here's one of the major banks in our country, the second largest bank when it comes to mortgages, actually increasing their fixed rates. So that's something that we're watching carefully right now. Now, other lenders haven't followed suit, and that's very interesting. So we'll see whether that goes far. Maybe Scotiabank's trying to be the leader, but the other banks are probably saying we don't want to do it, and I'm hoping that's the case. Because if that's what happens, then we probably won't see a lot of movement in rates. I can tell you that the bond market this morning went down 20% as well on the 5-year bond yield. So again, there's more downwards pressure, but the banks, we don't know what they do. From time to time, they surprise us and go against the flow. So and they do it for their own purposes. So that's the case. But really, I mean, the lenders, they're going to be at skeleton staff. They've let us know to be careful. I can tell you our operations here right now, we've got IT specialists in our building right now. We are preparing all of our staff so that they can work from their homes. So as far as we're concerned, Mortgage Brokers Ottawa, it'll be business as usual, with the exception of just won't be in the office. Everybody will be working from their homes, and we're arranging all that. And just like you said, Jody and Matt, you know what? I mean, technology is great these days where we can do this kind of stuff. And I can tell you, we closed our offices last Thursday to the public, and it's worked out well. Most public obviously understand, and we can do these video conference calls and stuff. So from our side, it's business as normal. On the lender side, you guys have had the e-docs or e-signing for a long time. Lenders are starting to adapt. We believe that lenders will adapt much quicker now based on the circumstances. So
Frank,
yeah,
you took a leadership position there in closing your offices to the public on Thursday. Can you run us through where those considerations came from, what information you were using, and do you think that's the right move? Should if offices are truly non-essential now, should we shut the whole thing down and everyone should shut their doors for a couple of weeks and let this see if we can get things moving?
Yeah, we want to get ahead of it. And again, our primary concern is for our staff. And I'll tell you what happened to us. We had a client come in, dropping off paperwork, coughing and sneezing all over it. I'm thinking, okay, what are we doing here? Like this, this virus is transmittable, obviously. And here we're collecting documents with all this stuff on it. So that was an easy decision for me. I just shut the doors and I said, that's it. Sent out the note, and everybody, if anything, everybody's accepted it much better, and it was taken much better than I thought it would. Our agents adapted. We had one agent who had 6 appointments that night, and every single one of them he called and said, hey, do you mind if we do it over the phone or via video conference? Every single one of them accepted it, and he was stressed out about it. And then he came back and he said, wow, that was pretty easy. I think that the general public understands what's going on here. So I think for you guys, it's much more difficult. I don't know that I want to buy a house through a virtual tour. I think I want to see the house. So you guys have got a bigger uphill challenge. For us, it's the lawyer thing that's going to be interesting, because I think we'll get the lenders to buy in with the e-signing. We'll do the video conference. I can email documents. So as mortgage brokers, we can email documents to our clients. They can print them, and then they can turn around and sign them and send them back to us. We can do the video conferences. We're going through all the paperwork. So from our perspective, we're going to be okay on that front. But again, expect there to be a little bit of a slowdown, I think, on getting back to us, because if we're doing, where our people are working from home, generally, the rule of thumb is that the efficiency level is not quite at the same. I expect if the lenders are doing the same, we may not be able to get that same turnaround time that we expect. But again, I would strongly recommend that, you guys do your business as usual, because I think we'll be able to deliver just like we always do.
So, Frank, in terms of timelines with lenders, where are things the same? Are things slower? What are you seeing in terms of timelines?
They're actually, so last week was a real quick turnaround week, and I don't know whether Toronto, and keep in mind, all our lenders are based in Toronto. So again, I mean, from our perspective, at least we've got a big office, and we've got prime status with a lot of our lenders. Therefore, in our case, we saw no difference. Like, we saw absolutely no difference. If anything, we saw a little quicker turnaround times.
So still give those 5 days for financing, give longer, and then also if you can address appraisals. And
those are even around? The 5 days are even around these days? I haven't seen one in a while. I don't know. It's been a few months since I've seen one of those. You know what? Almost every single one of our clients is asking to go in without financing conditions. Obviously, you guys know exactly why that's happening. In many cases, at least our brokerage has taken the approach where we'll pre-approve customers, and all we ask our customers to do, or realtors to do, is to email us the MLS feature sheet, the realtor sheet, because then we can look to see if there's any notes on there that would create a red flag for our clients, or for the lender, sorry. And if there isn't, then we're giving our clients the green light to go ahead without the financing clause. So again, I can't remember last time I saw financing clause on a purchase agreement in the last 3 or 4 months. So from that perspective, business as usual.
Awesome.
Frank, if I can just jump in here real quick, it looks like the Remax Hallmark offices have just closed to the public as well. I just received an email from our principal, so it looks like people are maybe following along on your leadership and guidance there as well. So if we all do our part, if we all start to make those adjustments, I think we can get there. Frank, if we get into quarantine and isolation situations, are we going to be able to maybe do drive-by appraisal, or work on other stuff? You think the banks and the lenders are going to be a little flexible on that kind of thing?
I think we're very fortunate that we live in a market, the real estate market, that is absolutely booming, but not Toronto crazy like, but it feels like Toronto crazy like right now. But from our experience, we're seeing less and less appraisals as long as it's an MLS listed property. So when a property is listed MLS, even if it goes $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 over list, we're finding that appraisals are not needed. Where we're seeing appraisals, and this is an opportunity for you guys to really promote your services, where we're seeing that appraisals are needed is if, Purple Bricks. Generally, we need appraisals almost on all occasions on Purple Bricks, or those mere postings and private listings. Those are the ones that require appraisals, and those are the ones that are challenging. But when they're MLS listed through a realtor, we're finding that there's less and less appraisals required, because lenders have automated appraisal services that they use, which is through CMHC called Emily. They're using that. Plus, right now, there's a First Canadian title insurance company that's coming out with an appraisal system as well, where what they do is they insure the lenders that the value is there. So those are starting to come out with some lenders as well. And of course, if it's default insured through CMHC, Canada Guarantee, or Genworth, even though this market has been crazy, I have not seen one appraisal request in the last 4 or 5 months, even though properties are going 10, 15, 20% over list.
You're not even seeing any. So the appraisals are not as common across the board, all lenders, or just the big five?
Well, no, that's pretty well all lenders. I mean, keep in mind, we deal with, only the 2 of the big banks is who we really deal with, which are TD Cantrust and Scotiabank, and they both have automated appraisal systems. That being said, if an appraisal is needed, that's going to be the challenge. We haven't crossed that path yet. But it'll be interesting to see whether lenders accept the fact that maybe a drive-by, maybe on a value, if a loan to value is 60 or 65%, they'll go with a drive-by, where if we're getting up to the 80% range, they may need full appraisal, and the transaction may have to be delayed.
Is there any word on, there's lots of people in various stages of construction, renovation, Purchase Plus, I know they have limits to how long you can keep the money, 120 days, 90 days sometimes, maybe 180 days. Any talk of potentially extending those or being lenient on those drawdowns and paybacks?
Yeah, I think everything's on the table right now. I mean, we are in uncharted waters, and I think that most lenders will do the right thing based on what we're going through. So I do expect to continually get announcements. We've got 2 marketing people that that we're going to have on staff full time and just getting information out steady to our public, to our realtors. So, but again, the lenders have promised us that all the changes, they'll communicate to us right away, and we'll turn around and communicate it to everybody. But we do expect to see some changes to give people some flexibility on exactly what you're talking about, renovations, new builds. You know, I'll tell you the other thing for realtors, all you realtors out there, you want to connect with your clients from a good side. Every single lender pretty well has a skip a payment option. If one of your clients is in a position where, you know, they're being laid off, obviously, or they're not getting paid for their work, the best thing to do maybe, and again, reach out to your clients. It's a good touch point, you know, on a, you know, see how they're doing. And at the same time say, you know, if you're going to struggle to make your mortgage payment, good idea to reach out to your lender, because every single lender is opening the phones up to do skip a payment options, where some lenders will let you do a month, skip a payment for a month. Some lenders will go as high as 3 months. So, and I think again, that's an ever changing policy as well, because, you know, that could change day to day based on the fact of what we're going through and what the government may actually impose. Because in Italy, you know, I don't know if everybody's heard, but in Italy, they've postponed all utility and all mortgage payments for the foreseeable future right now.
Frank, if you might have seen a tweet from CMHC this morning saying that they're working with lenders to be able to allow mortgagors the ability to defer maybe even up to 6 months of payments. Do you have any new information on that?
Exactly what you said right now. We're seeing that the insurers, and CMHC is the big one, obviously, that's the federal Crown Corporation, but Genworth and Canada Guarantee generally follow that same path. So we expect to see that. And we expect the lenders to be more flexible to it. These lenders sometimes are pretty strict on it, but now that the default insurers, but again, those help out for people that bought properties with less than 20% down and had that default insurers. It's not only about them, right? There's lots of clients out there that have, you know, bought with 20% down or have more equity, but have lost their jobs. So that's where the banks come in and not the default insurers. And we expect the banks to follow the same path that the default insurers have followed.
So right now, I got a question right now in terms of income verification. If we all are quarantined, if we are thrown on, you know, if our clients are thrown on EI, how are you guys handling that? Or do you have kind of some ideas that you guys are putting in place? Or are you suggesting people get their, you know, income verification done now? What are you thinking?
Yeah, we're telling everybody to keep your last pay stub from when you're working, because we, you know, right now, most lenders are 30 or 60 days. They want a pay stub data within 30 or 60 days. And fingers crossed that, you know, this virus has passed us by then. But, you know, again, it's every day for us. And I truly deep down in my heart believe that banks will acknowledge what the previous employment was and actually pass on what's going on right now, because they understand that everybody's going through it, including themselves.
Frank, I really appreciate you. I know we grabbed you a little bit last minute yesterday, and I appreciate you making the time today. We'll shoot out everyone your contact information in case they have follow-up questions, want to talk to you about different things. I'm seeing some questions go by about appraisals being requested and stuff like that. I'm sure it's case-by-case basis, depending on who's applying, what's applying, you know, what kind of product, what kind of situation. We know this business, everything is different. And so we'll try and see if we can send some of those your way and round out that information. But we do want to keep everything moving here because we know everyone's time is valuable. So Frank, thanks very much from all of us here. Feel free to stay on the line if you want to listen to David. David, are you on the line with us now?
Yeah, he is. I gotta find him here. He's there. He is right there.
There we go.
Hey, David, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for including me on this very important call.
Great. David, I sent you a list, Matt and I sent you a list of questions this morning, sort of situations and scenarios. We're all wondering about closings. We're all wondering about, you know, what's going to happen in the legal space, rumors of, you know, shutdowns of the registry system and things like that. Can you walk us through some of those things, what your office has done to prepare, you know, how mobile a lawyer's office typically is, and maybe if you can speak to your situation specifically and give us an idea about what's going on in your end.
No problem. I'll try to do the best I can, as you all are appreciating, this is evolving very, very quickly. Sometimes you've implemented certain procedures in place, and then something new comes out. So the lawyers are, as a law firm ourselves, we are trying to be proactive with the protocols that are being put in place by public health when it comes to in-office client meetings. This was as of Friday. Obviously, things have starting to change with respect to that. We're trying also, as a law firm, we have IT in place to deal with the potential of working from home, things like that. Closing a real estate transaction is a little bit different, fortunately and unfortunately, depending how you look at it. But certainly in this type of situation, a lot of it due to law society regulations that we are bound by, that obviously when written weren't taking into consideration this type of health issue. And so what we're trying to do at our office, at least initially now, and other things. In fact, I have a meeting with my partners right after this conference call to talk a little bit further about some measures. But we're trying to eliminate any non-essential meetings face-to-face in our office. Those would be things like a wills meeting, wills instructions, corporate instructions, things like that. Many of those can be done over the phone, and we're going to implement that, or we have implemented that. Obviously, we have a number of cleaning products throughout the entire office. Our office is a little bit different than some. We're on 3 floors in a house. We have put in place one meeting room designated for clients if we have to have clients come in to sign real estate documents, which I'll go through in a moment. And so we are limiting a client, if they do have to come in, to be in only one office and not to go throughout the building into different floors. We also have protocols in place for cleaning the office, etc.
David, can I stop you there for a second?
Signing of documents.
So I have a question that's pretty poignant from an agent on the call here, and we were talking a little bit about this yesterday. What protections? I know this group is very familiar with the APS and all the features of it, but we've not lived through this and applied this tool to this situation. What's in the APS to help us with quarantines, with delayed closings, with even my specific question, if the seller on closing day it has a diagnosed case of COVID-19, is that a defect of the property, and can a buyer hold off on a closing? And so carry on.
Those are really, really good questions, and to be quite frank, some of those that probably have not been thought through in the past, and these may be the types of questions that lawyers and real estate agents and clients are going to be working through in the next little while. From the perspective of, we're monitoring the Law Society for guidelines. We're monitoring the local Law Association for guidelines, and obviously we're monitoring the Registry Office for guidelines. We're certainly also monitoring title insurance and their requirements with respect to closings. If certain measures are taken by the Registry Office, things like that. So right now, the agreements that have already been drafted may not have these type of protections. So there may be a requirement for potentially, we don't know, but potentially for extensions of closings if required. The question for extensions for closings is going to come down to, well, who's going to bear the costs, right? And how do we deal with the cost of an extension? And the reason is obviously because a buyer, if we extend a closing date until such time as the transaction can be registered, money transferred, keys, etc., there's going to be a cost to the buyer for making alternative arrangements. The question is going to become, who's going to bear those costs? Is this something that, it probably will have to be negotiated between buyer and seller? Is it fair to split the cost? Obviously, it's not something that the seller can control. So those are all things I think are going to play out in the next little while. And certainly, as we start to encounter these things, we may have more clarity on what can be done.
So David, can you walk us through that then? What, as a prudent practitioner right now, what am I including in an APS in a broad sense? I don't want you to tell us what the specific clause is going to contain, but what am I contemplating? What does the next 6 months look like for you? Is there, provisions about delayed closing specific to COVID-19? Is there, issues around walkthrough language that's different? Is there, a financing appraisal? What are we supposed to do to really protect our buyers and sellers? Because at the end of the day, we all have closings that are coming up, and that you're right, those are baked in. And now, but there are other transactions that are happening, properties purchased sight unseen, institutional transactions, different things like that are just the business of the business. What are we supposed to do here, in your opinion, to really protect everybody?
Sorry, David.
It's a really good question. Yeah.
Really quick, I just want to remind everybody that there's a chat bar on the right-hand side. Feel free to ask questions. If we can get to them on the call, we will, or if we got to follow up after. So just, feel free to ask your questions that way.
Right. Like I said, this is uncharted waters. What you may want to start considering is having that conversation with buyers, with your clients who are the listing agents, to talk about, at least to have the conversation about the potential for extensions and the costs. And that may be something that you may want to incorporate into an agreement of purchase and sale, where, similar to a situation where a client is selling an estate and there's a probate and you haven't got probate, so you build into the agreement of purchase and sale, that the contemplation of an extension. You may want to go that one step further to maybe have something built into the agreement that talks about costs and maybe holdbacks. Again, each one of these situations is going to be different, but having that conversation at the time of negotiation is the time to do it. Potentially, sometimes it's a little more challenging when the agreement's already been firmed up and you are now trying to deal with the situation the day or two before closing or the morning of closing when something comes up at last minute. But if you have something built into the contract or language built into the agreement, that potentially deal with the situation, it may be helpful. Certainly, I think it's important for agents to work closely with your broker managers, work closely with your client's lawyer, and talk to them about that up front. See what suggestions they may have. This is all pretty new to everyone, and we're all trying to figure out what we can do to deal with this situation.
And David, this stuff can go. This can be a seller's burden or a buyer's burden, depending on what's happening. I mean, we're talking about a situation where, maybe the seller is self-quarantined and can't leave on closing day, but it could be the fact that, the buyer is quarantined maybe in another country or other things and can't actually attend to closing or even source the funds. Or maybe, there are some areas they're talking about banking is shutting down. I know the United States has some different banking rules, and some banks might be closing, other people talking about cash. So, this could go either way, right? So we have to look at protection, I guess, from both sides.
I think you're absolutely correct. And I think what kind of conversations you may want to have with both sides of the client, the buyer and the seller, is trying to make sure that they think about these things in terms of their contingency plans. If closing is extended on either side, what contingency plan does the buyer have for their content? What contingency plan do they have in place for where they are going to live, in terms of whether it's going to be a hotel, whether it's going to be a family member, something to assist on the seller side of things. Again, those are the types of things we're going to have to try to figure out. Certainly if a seller is out of country and can't be home to sign documents, certainly there are potentially, that they would have to maybe work with a lawyer in that jurisdiction to sign it. We do that anyways right now, but who knows if that's available, and then we'll have to deal with those issues on a case by case.
So David, we're going to have to keep the call moving. Is it okay if we send everyone your contact information in case they have follow-up questions or information?
It would be my pleasure. I do appreciate the opportunity. And if you do this again, as this situation unfolds in the next, hopefully short little while, but I'd be more than happy to do this again.
I really appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Matt, if we're, anything else we need to address on our way?
I think we're good. I think we're ready for Jason. I just got to find him. Here we go.
Some of you might know our fellow colleague, Jason McDonald, working out of the Barrhaven area in his own building on Greenbank Road. He's also been the president of the Barrhaven BIA. I don't think they'll let him go. He's been the president long enough that I think they've actually shackled him to the desk, or maybe to the sign welcoming everyone to Barrhaven. I'm not sure. Maybe you can tell us 10 seconds about how long you've been there, Jason, and walk us specifically through.
Sure.
You've had to make some tough decisions in your role there as a leader, a community leader, and help people with some really tough choices. Can you run us through some of that stuff?
Absolutely, and I think, Jody, as usual, I'm probably going to ruffle a few feathers with my 2 cents worth here, but maybe we'll liven this up a little bit. I've been the chair of the Barrhaven Business Improvement Area for a little over 6 years now. I've been on the board for about 10. I've had various roles as chair of the Economic Development Committee, chair of the Community Marketing Committee, etc. Participate on a couple of other boards as well, and have sat on some entertainment boards, such as the Ottawa Oktoberfest and stuff like that. A few things that I'd like to touch on. I guess I'll go into the BIA thing, but I really think that we need to take a little bit of a deep breath here. At what point in time did we think that what we're doing is life and death? And at what point in time do we feel that the home purchase and selling is critical to our human survival? And I'm not being dramatic here. Just for context, in terms of infectious diseases, I was a volunteer firefighter, part-time firefighter in Canada as well as in West Carleton. I did a job sharing program at one point in time with the Ottawa Fire Department. We had a rooming house fire. I was at Laurier. We went into the fire. I was removing debris and whatnot. When we came out, a lieutenant grabbed me and walked me over to an ambulance and said to the ambulance attendant, "Can you deal with that?" And he pointed at my leg, and I had a hypodermic needle sticking out of my leg. So this was in 1993 when HIV was around and we didn't know much about it. I was tested for HIV for 6 straight years, every 6 months, and got a tetanus shot in my stomach every year for 6 years, which is extremely painful. My father contracted bacterial endocarditis at the age of 49, and it ate the valves and the walls of his heart. And bacterial endocarditis can come from anything. It can come from a fishing hook. It can come from absolutely anything. So in no way am I frightened or spooked by bacteria and viruses. I understand sort of what they're doing. And the reality of that, though, is by understanding what they're doing, Italy had 229 cases on February 25th. As of March 15th, they have 21,000 cases. So we're currently in Canada at the 300 mark right now. And it's not about what the question is more that, I'm going to be rude for a second, and I assume that there's all adults on here. My old carpenter father, who is very rough around the edges, shall we say, used to have some great sayings. And so please excuse my language, but I'm going to swear. The fucking you get ain't nothing like the fucking you're going to get. So if we piss around with this and don't err on the side of caution, I think that, if anything does go wrong, there'll be no recovering back from it. And so what's the cost of us just slowing things down? So I'm hearing about us doing buys and sales and all this complication and whatnot. What would be the ramifications to us just stopping? And that was one of the things I had to assess with the BIA is a couple of things. We're a public body and a public entity. If anything was to happen on our watch, we would be held accountable. So we decided as a BIA to shut things down basically on Wednesday. And this was huge for us. I was very, very concerned with this. I had a very large meeting scheduled with my executive director, a public meeting, and the city councilors to discuss Barhaven's new downtown. We had over 6,000 people that were going and confirmed to be going. So, you know, this was a really big deal for us, and we've been working on this for literally years. Jan Harder has been a very big champion of this, and it's really going to change our community. We pulled the plug. We sat down, we met about it, and we just said, what's the risk? Like, how much does it hurt to delay by just a couple of weeks? And of course, that's what we're hoping for. So we shut it all down. We had some businesses push back initially because, you know, last week and even this weekend has been a transition period of people saying, calm down, relax, it's not going to be that bad. And yet starting to realize, well, it kind of is. You know, on Thursday in Ottawa, we had 1 case. On Friday in Ottawa, we had 2. On Saturday in Ottawa, we had 5. And as of yesterday, we have 10. And I'm not sure where we're at today. But you can see how it's scaling. And it's not the deaths, it's the impact that's going to happen. And that being said, the deaths in Italy right now are upwards about 6%. And it's not affecting people 60 and over, or just people 60 and over. It's affecting people 40 and up. So quite frightening. So we measured the risk and we just said, we don't have insurance for this that could cover this, so let's pull the plug and be safe. And I would say, I would point to the multinational billion-dollar corporations, the NHL, the NBA, and these kinds of organizations. If they're making the judgment call to pull the cork or pull the plug, and I mean shut down, why are we as agents still having the conversation of what we need, you know, of doing how a purchase and sales? Why are we not sort of taking a leadership position on this and saying, whoa, we do have a lot of control over our market. We are, you know, I think it's what, 91% of buyers now are working with an agent. And, you know, we know how many sellers are working with agents, even with the for sale by owner statistics. So why are we not driving the bus on this and saying, look, we're going to push pause? The first reason we're going to push pause is because of your health and your well-being. The second reason that we're going to push pause is because we need to protect your fiduciary interests, your earnings. For our buyers, we're mandated to get them the cheapest price possible. And for our sellers, we're mandated to get them the highest price possible. So are you doing that in an environment that facilitates those results? I don't think that we are. The debate and discussions that have gone on Facebook in regards to open houses have been troubling. And I think one of the things that was really interesting was yesterday I had a friend that's a client as well as was sort of a colleague who's still on some of these real estate things but doesn't practice real estate anymore. And he said to me that the agents are literally defining themselves in terms of those that are continuing to do open houses and those that are not. So whether it's a right thing to do or whether it's not, it's how it'll be perceived in the future depending on where this goes. And if this goes quite south, then it can be quite yucky.
So Jason,
another thing that's of concern, sorry, yeah?
I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, so I don't want to let this point go though. You have your own standalone building that you operate with your
Yes.
team. Can you,
Yes.
so you're like a brokerage kind of on your own there, and you're able to make decisions and choices for your team and for your billing and your staff and your safety. Can you run us through what you guys have done, what you're recommending to your team, what you're enforcing with your team, how, you know, so what, like what actually, you know.
And let me give you some.
Yeah, some specifics. Like what should,
and let me give you some updates, Jody, on that. So this morning, all of the BIA, all the chairs of the BIA are emailing each other, making sure the ACOBIA, the Ontario Federation of BIAs, has sent out an email saying to cease and desist all activities, everything else. Well, we're ahead of that curve on the Wednesday, and we assisted the Bronson, the Bank Street. We assisted a couple of other BIAs in the messaging around that. In regards to my own business, last week I just got a little bit concerned. One of my agents had been at the REMAX conference in Vegas. She came back and she was under the weather, and she is the definition of health. Victoria she's in amazing shape. She's extremely healthy, and it had quite an impact on her. And of course, she was done in a couple of days. And then another one of my agents got sick as well too. And I just said, you know what, this is just not worth the risk. We also had a client that I'm preparing to list their home, and they had told me that they were in the UK for 3.5 weeks. On Thursday, I was to go over and visit them, and he decided to share a little bit more with me. He wasn't there. They were in Cambodia, Laos, Singapore, and South Korea. And he just didn't want to feed into the hysteria, and he didn't want people judging him. So they had just gone along on this quite discreetly. But his guilt started to take over on Wednesday, and he wanted to let me know. This is somebody that's extremely forthright, very, very trustworthy. And I just thought, Jesus, Murphy, how many others are taking this in a casual way that have actually been exposed? This man is extremely intelligent. He's embarrassed by it now, and we've had multiple discussions since then, because he's since seen my video and a bunch of other things, and he just feels terrible. But he potentially, they could have, and they are quarantined, by the way. They're now under quarantine for the next 14 days. He could have exposed myself, my clients, and random strangers to exposure. And that was a big concern to me, that if somebody of that, integrity and caliber would be that dismissive about it, which a lot of people are, right? It's been a lot of toilet paper jokes and whatnot. Can you really trust what people are saying coming in? And, the hand sanitizer and whatnot is not enough. This vaporizes. And so I just had to cancel the risk. And I said to the team, we're done. You can work from home. You can do your buyer consults from home. We can do seller coaching. And I can't recommend to my sellers to be selling right now, because I feel it's the best market for them to be selling in, for me to maximize their returns. Listen, this is all going to come back if we do the right things. There's no reason for us to panic. We need to be confident and conscious in terms of what we're doing, and just be careful. Let's all practice social distancing. Let's all just cool our jets. Go, make a tent in the basement, for Christ's sake, and watch some movies for the next 2 weeks. You won't get this opportunity again. Life is so bloody busy with social media and both partners working and all the rest of it. Yeah. Embrace this. This morning, I got an email from Genworth. We take care of their foreclosures, and they want me to send them a full breakdown of what our actions are and how we're mitigating this situation. So, I listened to Frank speak, and I listened to David speak. The reality is, exactly, we're all in the same boat. We're all going to have to deal with this. Nobody's just going to make a decision on us. We have the Feds making a large announcement today at 1 o'clock. I think you can be guaranteed what that is. Scotia needs a kick in the ass for having raised.
So Jason, so really quickly, we want to keep this call short. Tristan asked a really good question, and
it's had me on.
It's chatted about. What happens with those clients that have bought and they need to sell? What about those clients that they won't have a place to live, essentially? What is your take on that?
Well, typically, right, Matt, it's a domino effect. So the buyers that have bought that home, the sellers are having to move into their home. Maybe it's new home construction. And I think if we all, are cognizant and it's like confident agents go into their interviews behaving like they're already the agent. It's the same situation here. If we all go into this going, hey, we'll work this out, we'll figure out the details, it's all going to be okay. There might be delays, there might be holdbacks. Banks are going to have to be understanding in this, because it's in their best interests to do so. Lawyers are going to want to be cooperating with each other to make the deals get done, and so are we as agents. The question is do we need to expedite doing that right now? So some of the things that could be done right now is do some amendments, push some closing dates contingent upon some of these triggers. Move out your closing dates. Be proactive for your clients. Frank had said the payment holiday. I think those are great little tactics and things that you can do to also build your credibility and show leadership. Contact your buyers right now and say, hey, we're going to do an amendment to the seller. We want all parties knowing that these kinds of things might happen. We don't know if they're going to, but let's build in a contingency plan just in case that they do. And I don't think you're going to see people being forced to close given these situations. Again, where is our priority right now? The government's priority, the bank's priority, and these things are not going to be make sure that one deal house closes on that condo for $297,000. They're more going to be concerned about the stock market, which right now, you know, the Dow is down 12.6%, TSE is down 10.3%. You know, and these are to be expected. These are the bigger ticket items. You know, keeping the flow of goods going. These are the things that are going to be more critical and more important. And us getting out of the way is going to facilitate focus being able to be directed there. And that's just my 2 cents worth. You know, on the fire department, they teach us to walk, never ever run, because we can't have anybody else injured. And so if you walk, you take your time and you get to your destination. We clean the truck so that we know where everything is and we can access it easily. I think that's what we should be doing with our business. Clean your truck. Make sure your equipment's in the right order. Make sure that your team and staff are prepared. Right? Your team and staff are prepared in terms of what could happen and what might not happen. And this isn't a doomsday scenario. This is an intelligence thing where we just need to be cognizant of what's occurring and do the proactive steps to take care of it. And I think
Jason,
real estate,
we're all going to send you an email looking for a copy of your listing and buyer presentations that you can share with us so we can all make ours better. I think we're going to have to wrap up the call, though, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you coming on with us. We only have a certain amount of time and people limits on this Zoom tool, as I understand. So Matt has a few parting words for us, and then we'll get everyone else on with their day.
Yeah. Again, we're thinking about doing another one possibly in a few days. It's really going to depend on how things roll out, you know, today with the announcement and from there. So if you guys want to see something, if there's specific questions, you know, let us know, please. Again, this is not to replace or displace the advice or recommendations of doctors or health professionals, government, or your brokerage, broker of record, or manager. So listen to them. You know, we're not to replace them by any means. So thanks everybody for coming out. We really appreciate your time. You know, we've had over 150 of you guys on the call today. We will be sharing this recording so you guys can send this out to your agents that couldn't make this. Please try and keep it to agents only. We don't want this to get sent out to non-agents. So please keep this, you know, in-house kind of thing. And if you guys have any other questions for anyone, you know, feel free to send Jody, myself, Frank, David, Jason a message, and we'll do the best we can to get it answered. All right.
Great. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone.